Hi, everybody. I really appreciate your time and your attention today. My name is Andy Fernandez. I'm the Director of Product Management here at Haiku. Now, we're going to talk a lot specifically in the context of public sector organization, education organizations, and even from the federal government perspective as well. But just to set the tone today, I'm going to try to focus as much as I can actually showing you product, but also want to set the stage a little bit to talk about today's topic, which is recovery in the context of cybersecurity. And the goal is to showcase why prioritizing recovery in today's threat landscape is critical for public sector organizations, commercial, and anybody who is always attacked by cyber criminals. Now, what I want to mention to set the tone at the beginning here is for the last 20 years, there's been a strong focus on prevention, being able to prevent attacks, being able to make sure that your guard is up, whether it's from networking, identity management, firewall infrastructure, you name it. But as part of the NIST framework, and as part, especially at the total volume of attacks that we're seeing, recovery is a critical component. We know that the pace of innovation within cybersecurity is on the side of the criminals. Because of their nefarious activity, because they're trying to find openings and exploits, they're always going to be a little bit of ahead. So you have to make sure that in case that does happen, whether it's because of a 0 day or because of something else, that your organization not only can prevent most attacks, withstand them, but for today's conversation, also be able to quickly recover. When you look at about what is disastrous in most organizations, it's the downtime that they experience, the revenue loss, trying to get their organization back up and running. Now, with that being said, though, it's a lot of the data that you see. Oh, there's a ransomware attack every 11 seconds. There's been 500 million attacks in 2022. I want to set the tone for what's about to evolve very drastically in the world of cybersecurity. What you're seeing here, everybody knows what ChatGPT is. We've seen the transformative power of ChatGPT, of Bard, of Claude, and all these large language models. But what we're also seeing now is a rapid adoption of the evil side of the house, something things called worm GPT or evil GPT. Now, you go back 10 years, it would take a cyber criminal months to execute a quality campaign. You go back about 5 years, and with a dark web, it took about a couple of weeks to really execute a quality campaign. Why? Because all of a sudden you can purchase a script, purchase people's information, create your own HTML file, and be able to send that, trying to spoof and pretend to be, JP Morgan or something like that. And that led to a pretty serious increase in the volume. But where are we today? With one prompt, without a line of code, not only can you customize a full malware injection, you can ask for branded emails, one pagers, landing pages that you can create. An end-to-end high quality attack now does not require a line of code by a cyber criminal. Not only will this increase the already insane deluge of attacks and higher volume, but it's also going to increase the quality of these attacks. And this is not even accounting for what we've seen in the last couple of years. Local city, law enforcement, municipalities, any public sector educational organizations have been targeted ruthlessly by ransomware attacks. Whether it's the city of Baltimore, Oakland, Illinois, a lot of these, we're also starting to see a new type of attack. It's not just the social engineering to get into encrypt ESXi servers, but it's also leveraging SaaS vulnerabilities, cloud misconfigurations, all of these areas that are a little bit of a new playing field that organizations still do not have the maturity of data protection for. And that's why you see SaaS starting to become the number one target for ransomware, even in the public sector. For the folks on the call on the federal government, don't worry, we will also talk about that as well. But I do want to kind of have a little bit of an emergency moment here and talk about the impact that SaaS has on local city municipalities and federal and governments. Now, one thing I want to mention though is SaaS and cloud, they're critical targets, right? When we were talking about being able to go through M365, Salesforce, things that are used across so many municipalities. Something that cyber criminals and smartly are doing is they're starting to turn their interest towards single sign-on providers. Why? Because they're the keys to the kingdom. These are the configurations, the roles, the access policies, the configurations that allow employees, organizations, groups to access the entire data estate of an organization. So what are they doing? They're doing everything that they can to gain super user access to go on an encryption party across all infrastructure, whether it's on-prem, whether it's SaaS, whether it's cloud. They're trying to leverage the keys of the kingdom, the identity access management, the SSOs providers to be able to execute an attack. We've already seen examples of that in Las Vegas. We've seen examples of entertainment organizations suffering devastating attacks because of this. Now, one thing I want to mention here is SSO providers are critical. They're what you need to be able to secure access within your organization. But you also need to think about how do you protect your configurations and those roles and access themselves. That's the most important piece of the data. Do you have a copy of your keys at home, or are you only relying on one key to get access? And if somebody else gets it, what do you do? It's critical to think about not only protecting your on-prem workloads, your cloud workloads, your SaaS workloads, but also the thing that connects to all of them, the single sign-on provider. But let's take a look at an example of what actually happened in Vegas. And this is a bit of a spree that happened across several organizations within the city of Vegas. They leveraged social engineering to access a single sign-on provider. They upgraded themselves to super admin. The organization, there's record of them knowing that something was wrong. They simply couldn't pinpoint and understand where it was wrong. And then that person, that criminal, began accessing infrastructure and encrypting. And now we saw that there were 8 days of complete downtime, $100 million in damages, and you are still seeing sporadic downtime and months of having to rebuild and reconfigure their environment. Now, what actually happens when an organization will have a backup of those keys, when they have the ability to actually say, look, something has happened, we need to be able to recover. So let's think of Okta. Somebody breaches Okta, becomes a super user. What if you have a backup of Okta? What if you have the ability to restore immediately from an immutable copy to a point in time? That your roles, your permissions, your policies, your configurations are all restored to that point in time where there wasn't a breach, and that all accounts were automatically reset. That's the value of having recovery, because it's not just about maybe reducing the total downtime about the event, but also allowing the organization to not spend months having to reconfigure these permissions. The whole point of this is Okta, Azure AD, Duo, they're the keys to your kingdom. You have to protect the keys to your kingdom. You have to be able to restore to a point in time. But what I also want to mention, especially within local city, within education, Okta's just one SaaS app. The average mid-sized organization, at least on the commercial side, has over 200 SaaS apps. And there seems to be a myth here around the role and the responsibility of these SaaS apps. So the way I like to explain it is, let's take DocuSign. Let's take Salesforce. Let's take AWS. Let's take all of these organizations that are amazing cloud platforms or amazing SaaS applications. Think about a parking garage. You go, you park in the garage. You pay the garage to be able to park there, to use the service so that you don't get a ticket outside for parking in a towaway zone. You get a value from it. But if somebody damages your car or steals something because you left the door unlocked, it's not the responsibility of the garage. It's the responsibility of the owner of the car. The same applies to your data. It's being able to be responsible for your data because the SaaS is responsible for the system, not the tenant. You as the tenant have to be responsible for the data. Now, what I want to get into now is actually showcase a little bit about how we approach this problem at Haiku. The plan that we have for our customers, whether you are a federal organization, a municipality, law enforcement agency, or even an education organization. So here's a little bit about Haiku. One is we've been a strong supporter of federal government. We're the first and only data protection platform that's built at scale to protect the world's thousands of applications. That means that we focused on protecting everything that your organization has. If you have on-prem, you have Nutanix, you have VMware, you have file shares. We want to make sure that that is protected, that is encrypted, that that has an ability to guarantee the recovery. But organizations are also quickly adopting cloud and they're adopting SaaS. We want to make sure that we scale to protect all of those as well. We have over 3,600 customers and an industry-leading NPS score. But take a look at some of those logos, whether it's federal government, whether it's health institutions, whether it's even the vendors themselves like Nutanix, they trust Haiku to be able to protect their data. But we take the recovery, especially in the context of a ransomware attack, extremely seriously. And our focus, we have a three-pronged approach to help all of our customers. And obviously this approach changes if you're federal versus local city or municipality. But our focus is making sure that you can recover in the event of an attack. So the first thing you do, if you're any organization outside of the federal government, we help you map out all of the as a service applications and expose unprotected applications. We have conversations with our CISOs all the time, and we ask them, how many SaaS apps do you think you have? They say 4 or 5. By the end of the conversation, they bring dozens, if not hundreds. So the first thing you need to know is the scope, the leakage, the problem that you have of all of these unprotected applications. The second thing is being able to immediately back up all of these critical workloads, regardless of where they are, and make sure that they are recoverable in the event of a ransomware attack. And the last, we even deliver a full ransomware preparedness assessment to give you a FICO score of your ransomware recovery preparedness. But with that, I actually want to show you exactly what we're talking about here. Now, let me share my other screen so we can get into how exactly we do this at Haiku. Let me know when you guys can see my screen. I think we're good here. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be logging on to Haiku. This is our platform where you're able to see, to manage, to protect our workloads and the things that are most critical to your organization. I'm going to show you the first thing that we do. And if your organization is using Okta, if your organization is using Azure AD, we're going to visualize the risk for you. We're going to expose the total volume of applications, and then we're going to show you exactly where you are exposed. So think of this as your company. Think of these yellow nodes as departments. These are categories. These are IT, DevOps, engineering, sales, marketing, you name it. And what we're able to do is actually start exposing all of these sources that belong to each department, because we start to paint the picture for organizations where you're on the IT side, you have no idea potentially what sales, with marketing, with finance, even what folks within engineering and DevOps are doing. So what we do is we actually expose all of the live sources of your environment as an organism, and then help you categorize them, build a plan, and start to protect them. So for example, you can expose and understand like, hey, we're using Zoom and we're holding critical conversations there, but we have no way of recovering it. We have no way of backing it up, and we have no way to store the data offsite. But that's just one component. Then it's how do you go and actually protect this? I'm going to give you an example with Okta. We talked about Okta being the keys to the kingdom. With Haiku, we're automatically going to discover these instances, and you're able to, within one click, assign a backup policy that goes to your storage in your control. As a city, as a law enforcement organization, as a school, you don't want to be depending on other managed storage. You have very strict regulations on retaining data on your own. We give you the power to bring your data back in your control outside of the SaaS. And that even includes using AWS, Google Cloud, or Wasabi as a storage target. But the most important piece that I want to mention is restore, being able to recover. Let's say that there is a breach, somebody does gain access within your organization, and you want to restore to a point in time where your Okta configurations were safe. With Haiku, you can restore from the organization level to specific users, groups, admin roles, and restore them all directly to production. Everyone associated with that account has to reset their password. You've kicked out the person with the breach. You've gone back to a safe point in time, and then you can go and remediate and try to understand what happened within the attack. But what this means is it's the difference between millions of dollars in downtime and bad publicity and simply being able to restore back to a safe point in time. Something that I want to stress is Haiku is the only enterprise backup provider that can help you protect and recover Okta. So with that, I'm going to go back and let me share my screen again. Perfect. And because I know we're running out of time, I want to make sure I address something here. We're actually on the process of becoming FedRAMP qualified as well. And one thing that we're focused on doing is we know each and every one of your organizations is going to have completely different types of environments. Maybe you're extremely virtualized, you have no SaaS, you have no cloud. We're able to help protect you there. If you're a federal government, we have the ability to help even within GovCloud as well, or simply on Nutanix and VMware on-prem. We do not store your backups. This becomes much easier to deal with in that space as well. But when it comes to cloud infrastructure and services, we're also able to protect it. And then, of course, today we just announced our breakthrough of a record of 50 SaaS integrations in our marketplace as well. So for cities, universities, any type of organizations, we are here to meet your needs and guarantee the recovery in case of an attack. That's the goal. We are not a cybersecurity company. We are never going to claim that we prevent attacks. We are here as an insurance policy to make sure that you know there's always a safe copy to recover from. The last thing that I want to mention is you saw me show that little organism, that Haiku's organization. It was all of our SaaS and our cloud. That's a free service that we deliver for your organization. Especially if you're a public sector, we want to be able to help you get secure. You are constantly faced with exploits. You are constantly faced with attacks. We want to make sure that you're able to register. So I'm going to allow for a couple seconds here for everybody to scan. Once you register here, no sales will reach out to you. There will only be customer engineers, and they will make sure to get you free access so that you can expose your critical SaaS applications as well. Ron, with that, I want to thank everybody for their time, for their attention today. And if we have time for Q&A, we can move forward.